Hello, this is Coach Aaron Saft and the MR Runningpains podcast. As promised, today my guest is Thomas Brown. Thomas is also doing the Grand Slam, having just completed the Old Dominion 100. So I thought it'd be a great guest to bring on and kind of get his insights into the Grand Slam. I coach Thomas as well, in all transparency. So we talk about training and the races, upcoming Western States, apprehensions, some strategies. So it's a great conversation with Thomas. I really enjoyed getting to know Thomas a little bit better. Such a really, really nice guy. I appreciate Thomas greatly. And I can't wait to see him out in California. As I record this, I am about to fly out tomorrow, which is Monday. And my wife and son won't come out until Wednesday. I'm flying out with my daughter. So I wasn't sure if I would be able to record much with my crew and everything. So I figured I'd get this done and one less thing to do this week for race week. So gonna get this all ready to go, and hopefully you guys can enjoy this conversation with Thomas. At the end, I'll just kind of pop on and talk about a few of my final thoughts going into Western States, and then next time you hear from me, hopefully it'll be a finisher of Western States. So we'll see. So enjoy this conversation with Thomas, and I'll talk to you at the end. As promised, I have with me in this show Mr. Thomas Brown. Thomas, thank you for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me here, Aaron.
We're recording here at my house, which is very convenient, so thanks for coming out.
Thanks again, and thanks for a wonderful run this morning.
Oh, yes. Yeah. We had a nice run in Foster Creek, which was great. So, Thomas, why don't you give us a little bit about your background, where you came from, and what brought you into the world of running?
Okay. I think probably just start. Big thing is moved to Asheville about 4 years ago after 26 years in the United States Army. So my wife is from Western North Carolina, and I've always wanted to live in Western North Carolina, so it worked out really well. I'm a husband, of course, and I've got 2 kids here in Asheville with me. And I'm not going anywhere. Absolutely love Asheville. I love Western North Carolina. Some of the best running, best scenery, best place I've ever lived. I just got to say that. As far as my running, started running in high school, and it was a way for me to lose weight for wrestling. And I was one of those kids. I'd been playing football probably since the 4th grade, and then started running a little bit, freshman, sophomore year to lose weight. And then junior year, I started talking to the cross-country coach, which happened to be my driver's ed teacher. Told him about running home from one of the local restaurants in town at night. He goes, "Hey, if you made it in that time, you ought to go out for cross-country." And I did. Absolutely love cross-country and really enjoy track, and I have not looked back, and I'm just so thankful that I got into a sport that could stick with me, that I could stick with and just enjoy my entire life. So that's my story on running. I always ran, of course, when I was in the Army, but it was one of those things where I cannot remember a single time where I was running in the morning in the Army, or any time where I just did not absolutely enjoy it. I love all aspects of running.
That's incredible. So 26 years of service?
Yeah, 26 years of service.
That's incredible. Thank you for that.
Oh, yeah, thanks for saying that. Yeah, happened. It's funny, I got to say, with my 26 years, I don't want to say always, but I really lucked out some of the places I got stationed. My last 3 places were Hawaii, Alaska, and before that was Monterey, California.
That's incredible.
Not saying I was there during that entire time. At least my family was. But I couldn't have gone to some just incredible places with this incredible running communities that I was able to be a part of, that really became just part of just my everyday running and my entry into ultra running. Yeah.
Well, tell us about that evolution. How did ultra running come about?
Okay, yeah. So I was stationed at, I guess I should say, Fort Liberty now, in near Fayetteville, North Carolina. So stationed there, and I'd never ran a marathon before, and all of a sudden it's like, I really want a marathon. The first marathon I picked was Grandfather Mountain.
Oh, my goodness.
A lot of people think, are you crazy? You're picking that as your first marathon?
Describe that course for those that don't know.
Yeah, so Grandfather Mountain Marathon starts off at Appalachian State University at the track there. You run one loop through there, and I've ran it 3 times, so I think they might change the course a little bit. But you run a little bit on the parkway, and you eventually end up at the Meadows at the Grandfather Mountain Games, which is really super cool. When you're running in there, and the games are going on. They're doing the Highland Games,
yeah.
The log tossing's going on. You hear the bagpipes, and you got the fog from being up there. It was just an incredible, just
hilly and
fun
mountainous
race. I think there's probably about 3,500 feet elevation gain.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so I did that
was
race.
Your first. Okay.
That was the first one. I totally loved it, and I think it might have been the same year. I can't remember, but I was like, I want to try this. I want to try the New York Marathon out.
What year was this?
I think it might have been. I'm thinking it was probably around 2003. It was a little bit after 9/11, and I remember that because I was up in New York the week before 9/11, around that time frame, and I was just like, I'd like to go back to New York. I got in from lottery back then.
Yeah.
And I got to tell the story too. I was getting ready to go on a trip for the military, so I was like, I won't be able to do the New York Marathon. And so I let them know I can't get into it. And then that trip got canceled. So I called up the race committee, and they thought I was trying to get my money back. And it was like, oh, you went back in? I was like, yeah, I went back in. I was like, yeah, you're in. So I went up and did that race, but it was really in preparation to doing the JFK 50, which was going to be, that was my first ultra marathon.
Okay.
JFK 50, known as I think it's the oldest 50-miler or the oldest ultra marathon in the U.S.
Yep. That's incredible. And that was a quick turnaround too, right?
Yeah, quick turnaround. I think it was the same year. Everything sort of
gets October to November, right?
Yeah.
Wow. How did that go?
It went fine. It actually went well. I was young then. I got to tell you, I'm 52 years old right now. So at the time, I was young. I had some speed, and I love that race. At the time, my girlfriend, my wife now, was with me for that race. So that's really special.
Yeah.
Having her go up there with me. A lot of history of that area. Antietam Battlefield's right beside there at the start. So it was just overall a really good trip. The race was very cool itself. I mean, part of it's on the Appalachian Trail.
Right.
I remember about 18 miles. Another almost 26 miles on the canal road. It goes by the C&O. I think it's the C&O Canal.
Sounds right.
And then there's like about 6 miles of just roving blacktop road. I did that race in slightly under 10 hours. Nice. So that was that. And few lessons learned, especially about how I felt afterwards. Everything goes through your head from post-race blues to maybe I should have walked a little bit at this point, but I got through it.
Yeah, you did. That's awesome.
So that was my first ultra marathon. And I really didn't do a whole lot of anything besides racing after that. I tell the story of running under 10 hours because that got me into that was a qualifier for Western States back then. So a little bit happened between that race and then when I applied for Western States at that time, I went on a deployment. Got back from deployment. I think the day I got back, I got married.
Oh my goodness!
Got married in Raleigh, and then we had more of a family wedding, a couple of weeks after that. The day after we got married, we loaded up the truck and drove to California.
Wow.
So I got stationed in Monterey, California at Naval Postgraduate, which was really cool. And that was the whole idea of applying for Western States. No, well, I didn't get into Western States.
And this is now
2004.
Okay.
Did not get into Western States, but I did. So I was a little bit grumpy about it. So it's like I am going to get into some 100-miler. So I just submitted my application and got into Leadville 100. It was just really just an application. So there was no lottery or anything that they have today. So
what was the impetus for that?
I wanted something
challenging.
Something challenging.
Yeah.
Part of being in the I promised myself I wouldn't talk too much, reference the military too much, but it's such a big part of my life.
Yeah, please.
Part of being in the military is you do so many things that are somewhat quite challenging, and getting away from that and going to being in a school environment. At Naval Postgraduate, I needed something physical and challenging to do, and that was that's the way I look at it. I was like, hey, I need to take it a step further and go and do the Leadville 100. So so Leadville 100, and my training back then, I'll just talk about my training back then was I probably hadn't run. I didn't do training runs over 10 miles. So when I went one day, I went 16, 18 miles. I was like, wow, that was just crazy. But in preparation for Leadville, I basically signed up for either a marathon or a 50K or 50 miler about once a month. And that was really my training. I take it this is California, early 2000. I couldn't have picked a better time to start ultra running. It was really the I don't want to say the start of ultra running, but the start of the more and more races were happening.
Yeah.
It was just a great time to get into ultra running.
What did your gear look like for Leadville? What did you use?
Yeah, so for Leadville, I had a couple of handheld bottles that I used for the first 50 miles. Okay. And at the time, there was limitations on what type of reservoirs you could carry. Back then, I think it was all Camelback. Mm-hmm. I still call my reservoir today my Camelback. So I got to 50 miles, and I switched from using the handhelds to I put a Camelback on. So the first part was handhelds. The second half was a Camelback, and I think it was probably I don't think I ever had that on for training very much. Okay. I was usually all the races I'd done preparing for Leadville were all handhelds. I think I can't believe I did this, but I started out in flying into Denver, went to Boulder for a couple days, went to Vail for a couple of days is because it's off season. Accommodations there were really affordable at the time. Yeah. And I'd drive up to Leadville during the day, maybe drive to Aspen and come back and sleep low. But when I was in Boulder, I bought a pair of shoes, and those were the shoes I wore for the race. I mean, who buys a pair of shoes and wears them that week for a 100-miler?
We do.
I did it. And I wouldn't do it again quite like that, but it worked out. Other gear, that was pretty limited on the gear. I've had folks when I was training in California that would be like, hey, you might want to look at your nutrition and specifically you really need to look at what electrolytes, how you're getting electrolytes. And there were really, some folks I was running with were really adamant about electrolytes and making sure, I was pretty solid on that. And I was like, I take a few gels, I eat this. I wasn't really too concerned about it. Yeah. And that became probably more and more crucial to both training and actually doing the races, electrolytes and the fuel. And as far as other gear, I can't really think of anything so specific.
Did you have poles? Did you use poles?
I did not use poles. I don't think I got into poles and started using poles.
We probably didn't see many people using poles back.
Yeah, I don't think it was really at the time. I think early 2000, it was known as more of like, oh, that's a European thing. Americans still use poles,
right?
And I think specifically for hiking, you'd hear that.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Right on. And how did Leadville go?
Leadville went fine. I got to the 50-mile mark. I met through your friend. I had a pacer at the 50-mile mark.
Okay.
He was very adamant, if you get to 50 miles, we're going to make sure you get to the end. So at 50 miles, I made it there in good time. But I wouldn't say I was properly trained, and how can you train for a 100-miler? So the second half went a lot slower to the last point where the last 2 or 3 hours my pacer was getting worried, like, hey, you might want to step it up a little bit, buddy. But I finished with about 15-20 minutes to spare. And was happy. That made my day. You know?
That's cool. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So any big takeaways from that, or any big changes that you made going forward to help make training and racing a little bit easier?
Well, so I didn't do so after Leadville, that was 2005. Big month. It was a big month. I ran a 100-miler. Let's see, ran a 100-miler, graduated from grad school, and my son Marcus was born. So changes from that. I like to say I didn't run another 100-miler until 2014. So I can't really think of any huge changes that I did. I didn't run any more 100-milers. And I was like, why didn't I do that? And partially I got stationed in Alaska at Fort Richardson in Anchorage. Absolutely wonderful running community up there. The 100-miler was a winter 100-miler, and I wasn't up for it. I'd do the 50K. And during that time frame, I was like, why didn't I do a 100-miler? I think partially it was we had quite a few deployments. So it was a little bit more, wasn't really focused on, and I didn't really want to focus on something else. And that was really the big thing on that. So I can't really think of any specific changes from there. Yeah.
So back, and then we're now at 2014.
Yeah.
Were you thinking of Western States again in 2014?
No, Western States is the farthest thing from my mind for the longest time.
Okay.
Being out in Hawaii, I was telling you, maybe I put my name in the hat a couple of times for Hurt 100. Absolutely wonderful race. The joke is I'd put my name in the hat for Hurt 100 secretly hoping I would not get in, and I never did. And it's probably a good thing. I was really never prepared for that. And
that's a tough, brutal race.
I was always happy to pace and volunteer for that wonderful race, but it worked out on that. But Western States, wasn't really thinking about it. It was one of those where, I got to qualify for Western States. I can't remember when I started
getting your qualifiers,
doing my qualifiers, but it really wasn't that big of a thought of ever running Western States.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't really think about it.
So when did it become like, I need to get a qualifier, or did it ever?
It didn't really. I was saying 2014, I ran Old Dominion.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even remember. I don't think that was a qualifier. It might have been.
I don't remember back in 2014.
I can't remember. I don't think I specifically sought out qualifiers for Western States.
Okay.
I ran, I can't remember what year I did it. I think it might have been 17 or 18. I ran Miwok 100, which was a qualifier.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely wonderful, just dynamic, just wonderful race, and that was a qualifier. I think that was one of them. But I wouldn't say I sought out any qualifiers for Western States.
Okay.
Yeah.
When did you start being cognizant of putting in for the lottery for Western?
Probably around 2018. I sort of had in my mind, what's this Grand Slam thing? Maybe I'll.
That was 2018 where you started to think about possibly doing Grand Slam.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
And I really didn't want to do. I didn't really want to get into do any other races without doing the Grand Slam. I just sort of had in my mind, I want to do the Grand Slam, or I really don't want to do any of the races. Maybe that's not the right mindset, but it was just like, if I'm going to do the Grand Slams, I started thinking about it, but it was just so far off.
Well, a lot of a lot has to come in together.
So much seems to be just, I don't want to say luck, but just,
we'll talk about how it all fell together for you. How did it come to be for you?
Absolutely. So,
and talk about which 4 you're doing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Definitely. So as we talked about, I've just completed Old Dominion 100,
which we're going to talk about, right?
We'll talk about that. I'm going to, after that, Western States next week. And then Vermont 3 weeks later, and then Wasatch, which I also got in the lottery. I believe that's either 6 or 7 weeks after Vermont.
I think 8, because I've got 5 to Leadville and then 3 to Wasatch. So it should be about 8.
Oh, okay.
I hope.
Aaron, you made my day. You gave me another week.
Yeah, absolutely. We need all the rest we can get, right? Right.
Yeah. On. So those are the 4.
Okay.
I did put my name in the hat for Leadville just because I thought I should. Mm-hmm. I didn't really was.
You had already done that. Did you want to? I
didn't think it would be that good for me to do Leadville and then turn around and do Wasatch. I thought it would be better. Just everything from logistics to all the above. This is the way I wanted to do it, so I'm glad it worked out that way.
Yeah. And so Vermont, talk about how, like, obviously Old Dominion is just registered. There's no lottery.
Yeah.
But then talk about how you got into Western Vermont and Wasatch.
Okay. Yeah. So I think we should probably talk about Vermont first.
Okay.
Vermont, I put my name in the hat for, I think, all of them. So really it was 2020 when I was thinking Grand Slam. So I put my name in the hat for Vermont, Western States, and Leadville. I'm not sure about Wasatch. The timing, you don't really want to apply for one if you know he didn't get into the other.
Yeah.
But I did get into Vermont for 2020. That got canceled,
right. And
then it got canceled again, I believe, in 2021. So I wasn't even sure if I'd do it in 21. I didn't want to do Vermont in 2022 for I'm not sure the reasons. The race director allowed for entry folks who had entries to transfer to 2022 or 23. So I was like, back in my head, I was like, oh, I'm sort of in Vermont. And I was like, maybe I'll go ahead and apply for Western States, since I think I had 8 tickets at that time. And at the same time, I was telling my family, I'm applying for Western States. What do you think about this? So I was just like informing them what was going on.
Yeah.
So Western States was the first thing I heard about. So I listened to the lottery. I looked around a little bit when the lottery was going on. I think I had a race going on that same day. And I wasn't too concerned about it, but I was interested. And I didn't see my name anywhere. And so it's like, okay, no big deal. I didn't get in. And then I got an email on the way home from this, I think, race. It was like, oh, boy, I'm in. So I get some decisions.
Was that exciting?
Or? It was very exciting.
Yeah.
It was like one of those, like, oh, wow.
Christmas morning.
Yeah. It's like, I'm in it now if I want to be.
Absolutely. So there's the Western States lined up.
So when Western States lined up, I had, I think that time I was doing the race, that time when I got into Western States, I had to get a qualifier for Old Dominion. So that it had to be any 50-miler within the time limit. So that was the race. So that everything was lining up. I was like, wow, I could really do this if I want to. I just got to go for it. And I was a little concerned on qualifiers. The Vermont, there was a qualifier for that, and I was like, oh no, I don't have a qualifier for Vermont according to their website, but the dates were off on their website. It's like, I do have a qualifier, everything's good. And there's still like the concerns, like, oh, what if I'm not really in? And I was in all 3, and Wasatch I wasn't too concerned about, because we all know, like, if you don't get into Wasatch and you complete the first 3, they
give you the provisional.
Provisional. So I'm in all 4.
Which you actually did get drawn,
right,
for Wasatch.
Yeah, I did get drawn for Wasatch. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I couldn't. I was was thrilled for you when I heard your name pulled.
Yeah. Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah, that's I think I'm one of the only, maybe one of the only people in doing the Grand Slam that did not get in any of the lotteries. Which it's amazing that I have them all lined up. But back to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So all right, so you got all 4 lined up. First one being Old Dominion.
Old Dominion,
which
yes.
you just did. We were recording the week before Western States, so you did 2 weeks ago.
Right. Yeah.
Old
absolutely.
Dominion. Okay.
Yeah.
So talk about Old Dominion. You have run Old Dominion previously. This was your 4th attempt.
Yeah. This is my 4th time running it and completing it.
Right.
All 4 times have been different. The first time I did it, I was coming from Hawaii en route to be stationed in Turkey. So it worked out like my brother lives in Arlington, Virginia. I was like, I'm going to stop over and visit him. When I'm visiting him, maybe I'll see if there's a race going on. And it turned out to be Old Dominion. So it was exciting to be able to do a 100-miler again.
Which is the starts in? Is it?
Yes, the town's called Woodstock, Virginia. I believe the valley is called Fort Valley, and it's a valley within Shenandoah Valley. So a little bit of a combination of just national forest and beautiful farmland. Just gorgeous area,
right? And mostly dirt road and paved road. There's a little bit of single track.
Yeah, I think a lot of gravel road, and too. It's funny, listening to podcasts, you hear the grumblings like, there's so much road, which it was okay for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's probably 60-70% road and gravel road and trail, which is not the most runnable trail. But after living here in Western North Carolina,
It shares some with the Massanutten, right?
Yeah, so I think 3 weeks before there was the Massanutten 100, which is really known as
really tough.
The really tough
technical
trail, and a portion of it's on that. I wasn't too interested. Maybe one time I was interested in Massanutten, but I chose Old Dominion, and the timing worked out.
Okay.
So that was 2014. I know I ran it 4 times. Sometimes the years blur through.
That's okay.
I know one time I came back and ran it because my wife and I were thinking about moving to Western North Carolina. So we're like, hey, well, why don't I go run the 100-miler? Let's drive to Asheville and look for a house to buy, and then visit her mom. Lives about an hour from here, or an hour from Asheville. So we did all above, found a house to buy that we'd be moving into. Yeah. I did the race, and that was either the second or third time. So,
the third time was 2021.
Right. Okay. Thanks. So when we came here on vacation to buy a house, and that all worked out. The third time I did it was 2021, which is a very hot year to do it. I'm not sure why I did it that year. It was just I do like the race. I do like the folks who run the race. Nice. And then the fourth year I had coming into it, 2 weeks ago, coming into it with a little bit of confidence of knowing what the course is going to be all about. And
what was the game plan? Because you've got Western 3 weeks behind it, which obviously Western is kind of a bucket list race for everybody. So
I would say I always try to keep my strategy is just stay healthy. Someone asked me, "What's your race strategy?" I was like, "Stay healthy." I just blurted it out, and that's sort of my race strategy. In the past, I heard this saying from a friend of mine. He said, "Hey, it's better to be 40% undertrained than 10% overtrained for a race." And I'd probably say the first 3 times I went in undertrained, but healthy. This time I felt like I went in trained and ready for the race. Maybe I don't want to say slightly overtrained, but just I was having to push myself and maybe take a little bit of risk on just because I've got other races going on. So I went in there just really wanting to feel like I'm ready to run. So with that race, I know that the first 10 miles is road, and I know I wanted to just get a little time ahead of me. So I try to stay in the middle of the pack the first 5 miles, first 4 or 5 miles, and then you go straight up a hill for 2 or 3 miles. I love walking up a hill, climbing a hill, so I took that fairly aggressive. And then the first 20 miles, I would say I'd try to stay in the middle of the pack, but not go too hard. One of the things I did was I wore road shoes. I'm really happy about that. I wore some big cushy road shoes. And I thought I'd change them at 20 miles, but I ended up changing those at 32 miles.
Okay.
So throughout that race, I just try to stay I just try to stay steady and level. I just made up a word there. I just try to stay steady and level throughout the entire time, and not get too aggressive and not worry about things. And for when I would would get on the trail, I'd be able to move out fast enough on those trails. I surprised myself throughout the race. I rarely have a 100-miler where I don't have any lows. I did not have a low at that race. I just stayed steady the entire time. Stevel, yeah, my new word. And it sort of surprised me, and I give credit to the training in the past 6 months, and then it goes to. I know there's a little bit more on just saying training and running miles. There's a lot more to it, but that felt good, and then
Thomas has been amazing with his training. As his coach, I get to oversee what he does. And he is quite the walker. We'll get in our run, and then he'll get in another hour, 2 hours of walking in. So he definitely puts in his work, his time on his feet, which is awesome. And obviously you mentioned you got your 4th finish.
Yes.
And so post race, time in between is 3 weeks, right?
Right, yeah.
We're a week before. We went for a run this morning. You seem to be moving pretty well. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. I was telling you, my concern whenever I go out and run is I'm always watching my Achilles, and I'm always concerned about post race, like being. Like some of my muscles being stiff, and then using other muscles I shouldn't be using. But I'm not having that issue right now, and perhaps because you've been telling me, hey, take it easy there.
Yeah. It was maybe 2 or 3 days after his race. He's like, I miss running. And I said, well, let's recover and make sure you're recovered.
So I'm feeling good now. I'm watching it though. I know I can't.
You still feel a little bit fatigued?
Yeah, I still feel a little fatigued. Not mentally fatigued. I feel like I want to go run.
Yeah, sure.
So there is no I'm just tired of running. So I think that's good. But I do realize, deep in those muscles, there's still recovery going on, and I still a big part of rest is extremely important for that recovery.
Which we've been doing. We're trying to make sure you're ready for race day, because obviously we have some concerns to address going into Western States, which we can talk about too.
Yeah.
So here we are, week to the day right now, and conditions. Yeah. Let's talk about the conditions. What stands out to you the most? What do you look at and be like, that's a little concerning?
Oh, okay, yeah. So I'd say I used to be concerned about just like all the outside factors. Oh, is my flight going to get canceled? And I quit worrying about that when I was running Old Dominion. So all that stuff's out of my mind. There is a little bit. I think most concerns of Western States are going to be 2 things with folks, and you keep on hearing it and hearing it and hearing it. Is number 1 is the snow, and number 2 is the heat. When you get to the lower part of the canyons, the snow. Like I said, I was stationed in Alaska, ran in snow. I know there's challenges to it. I am a little concerned about getting into snow and going downhill, but I'm more concerned about getting slowed up by the snow more than anything. I'm not. That's my concern. The heat. I love running in like hot weather, but I don't want to get overconfident on that. So that is a concern where there's going to come a portion where I need to completely fill up in water and drink all that water before I get to the next aid station. So that's just a reminder. I need to do the electrolyte pills. So those are the two, like the biggies, the snow and the heat.
Yep. And so far as your water carrying capacity, what are you intending? What's your plan? What are you going to carry?
I tend to, I've got two types of, what do you call them? What do you call them? Camelbacks. I mean, vest. Yeah, I'll quit calling them camelbacks.
Okay.
So I do have a Nathan vest, and I do have a Solomon vest. The pros and cons to each.
Sure.
I wore the Nathan at Old Dominion. I'm thinking about sticking with that a little bit. It maybe bounces around a little bit more than the Solomon, but I do know the Solomon could get is slightly warmer when I wear that.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes you just got to pick something and go with it and have confidence in it. I use both combination of water bottles up front and a bladder on the back.
And what's your bladder? How big?
Yeah, I think it's a 2-liter.
Okay.
Yeah, it might be a liter and a half, but I think it's a 2-liter. Doesn't mean I fill it up 2 liters.
17-ounce flasks?
Yeah, 17 or 18-ounce flask.
What's that? 32, 64, 50, 71, 81, 90, 98 ounces.
Yeah.
So you have the capacity to carry 98 ounces of water.
And I tend to, a lot of times I'll carry a soft flask on one side, and I like the hard flask when I just want to drink water out of it. So when I do get to an aid station, I tend to fill that up and fully drink one flask before I take off. Maybe it's one of those mental things. I could sort of game it a little bit on how much water and weight I have. But I don't want to. At Old Dominion, I never got caught short on water, and I know that could really be detrimental for a race. Is to, even if you go a mile or two where you're needing water, that could just really destroy someone's race. So I want to just slowly drink water throughout the entire time and just stay consistent on it.
Do you do electrolytes or?
Yeah, so I think I might have listened to one of your podcasts. Do the combination of goo and spring.
Okay,
that seems to work for me quite well. I will do goo and spring for the first portion of a race. For electrolyte pills, I know they're pretty much all the same composite, but Endurolites works for me.
Is that
that's the hammer gel ones? Okay. Yeah. So I do those maybe 1 hour during the day, sometimes at night. But I try to do about 1 hour, 1 every 2 hours. I know I don't really have a hard, fast rule on what I'm doing with that. But that's where I go on like fuel and electric lights. If they have any type of what's some of the brands, I'm trying to think, some of the electric light drinks, I'll fill up a hard flask with one.
Do you ever do the electrolytes in calories, or do you kind of typically just stick to electrolytes if it's going to be in your fluids?
Yeah, you pretty much in fluids. I mean, as far as like calories.
So, like, in other words, would you use a product similar to like Tailwind?
Yeah, if they have Tailwind at the race, I'll use it.
And they're doing Roctane here at Western States, which is a similar product.
I'm not sure if I'm going to go with Roctane. I've used it in the past. It seems to be a little too much for me for whatever reason.
The other problem too is that as this race goes on, because of how much people are relying on the aid stations, they water it down. So, a lot of people that are relying on those calories and electrolytes, it's so watered down. Like early in the race, it's probably going to be okay, but later in the race, the further we go, probably the more watered down it's going to be.
Okay, yeah.
So just keep that in mind.
That's a good point. Yeah. During Old Dominion, I stuck to water in either the Endurolites and the Goos and the Spring Gel, and specifically because Old Dominion uses Gatorade, which little It works for me short term, but
Sure.
I know that's not. I don't, for me, it's just not a good long term.
Yeah, it's a lot of sugar.
Yeah, but that's a good point on the.
We have the capacity to have plenty of drop bags. I'm looking at the aid station chart here, and if I look down, there's plenty of places you can put whatever you want to refuel with. Like I'm using Hylay. And I mean, I can put it at 15 because I won't see the crew until about 50K at Robinson Flat, and you're not going to see crew until Forest Hill, which is 62.
Right. Yeah. So that's a good point. Like at Old Dominion, I did put about 4 to 5 different gels in each drop bag in a little Ziploc bag that I could just grab the whole thing.
Yeah.
And if I wanted to put some potato chips from the aid station in there, I could do that too.
Yep. And the good thing too is it's goo products. So they're going to have goo gels at all aid stations. So you can resupply with goo gels. Yeah. You probably just need your springs to reload. But if you're going to do some kind of electrolyte, I would suggest just putting some drop bags out. So.
No, that's really good thing to hear. I do well with solid food. A lot of folks have. I know that's an issue. I could pretty much eat anything. Yeah.
The later the race goes, the more I can eat. But it'll be interesting to see, what they have, because especially it being hot. Yeah. I don't know about you, but when it gets like super hot, like there's only certain things will really appeal to me when it's like super hot. Like if they're like, we've got fresh burgers, I'm like, so it'll be interesting to see what the body will do, which is things I'm trying to take into consideration, and why I'm trying to get calories off of my fluids, because who knows what's gonna I'll probably be able to get gels down, but who knows by the time it gets to that. So
I think the big thing too, even when we're going up in this, just thinking about this now, even though we're starting out and there's going to be snow, is we can't forget to drink water at that point too.
Right.
And that's for me. That's why I want to stay consistent throughout the race.
Even when it's cool, and I go for my long runs, I try to do about every 1.25 miles at least. So about every 2K, I make sure I drink, just as a reminder. Like I said, even when it's cold, just so I have something, an interval at least in my head. So if I haven't drank, then I'll look at my watch like, probably should drink. Like everybody has a nutrition interval, I try to have a hydration interval as well, even when it's cool. But when it gets hot, obviously you'll be drinking more.
You're bringing up all these things I should have thought about a long time ago. No.
Well, it's all good things to talk about now.
I'm glad I'm hearing it now.
And the third X factor, I'll say, is going to be altitude, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, we're not getting up. It looks like high point 8,685 feet. So not extremely high, but still high enough that you're going to feel a little bit. So I think that's the third X factor.
That's a good point.
In combination with the snow, because we will be in snow when we get to that altitude. So pace is already going to be slowed by altitude, and then snow on top of it. So it's just being cautious. This if you look at the elevation profile I have it here in front of Thomas and I, that's the 4-mile climb. So that's our summit where you take your sunrise picture.
Right.
Then we've got kind of a nice downhill, which brings us down to about 7,000 feet. So, it's just that first climb that's really the tough part. And, that's where people go out too hard. They're so excited. It's hard not to be with the atmosphere that's there. So it's, as I try to do at most races, I just try to stay calm, not get caught up in everybody else, and focus on me. Which is hard because, sometimes you have people like flying by and you just can't care because you're not even 4 miles into the race. That's the hard part, is remembering just to stay within yourself. So,
that's a hard thing to, it's a hard thing to remember. I don't know if there's anything that could help someone else, if someone maybe reminding or experience on just staying calm before the race.
I always pay attention to my heart rate.
Don't use any energy that you don't, if you don't need to use that, just calm down.
Yep.
We all have our different pre-race routines. I'm probably not going to do a whole lot around the race.
Yeah.
I plan to go to Lake Tahoe with the family. See that. Yep. I don't want to get too excited. Yeah.
I get it. It's an early start, 5 a.m. start.
Right.
We won't need headlamps, which is cool. But when we start hitting the canyons, that's really where the race starts happening, right? Like, we get into Duncan Canyon. That's where we're going to start feeling the heat. And that's pretty early in the race, not even 25 miles into the race. That's where we'll start feeling,
Okay.
I mean, up on top of the ridge, Lion Ridge, Red Star, those two aid stations, it's going to be a lot of sun exposure. That's where some of the fires hit and burn the hottest.
Okay. That's interesting. I wasn't thinking of that there at all.
So there's going to be a lot of exposure up there, plus snow. So, I mean, you're going to have that reflection off the snow. So being covered up there and having some extra sunblock with you, that's a good idea up there. So, plan your sunscreen strategy.
I'm really glad you told me that, because I wasn't even going to have a hat.
Yeah,
until I got to
the sun will be up.
The canyon,
when we hit the sun's going to be coming up, and then from there on, it's going to be pretty high exposure.
Okay.
And then again, we come down into Duncan Canyon about 24 and a half miles in, and that's where the heat starts. That's where, and each canyon is going to have a creek that, when we get to the bottom, there's going to be a creek, and it's good to just take a second, cool off, jump in, kind of get wet, because you got Duncan Canyon, and then let's see, I forget what the name of this canyon is between Last Chance and Devil's Thumb, but this one can be extremely hot as well.
Okay.
Obviously you can look at the pitch here; it's super steep. So, just being careful on the downhill going into the canyon, and then the uphill, it's just pace yourself, just steadily, nice and stay within yourself up that climb. Then we go right back down into El Dorado Canyon.
Right,
and
okay.
Again, there's creeks at the bottom of both. There's actually a creek also at Robinson Flat where you can kind of cool off there as well.
Okay.
But we climb out of El Dorado to Michigan Bluff. This is, again, take your time at that aid station, make sure you cool off, because from there, it's between Michigan Bluff and Forest Hill where you're going to see your crew. That's where Volcano Canyon is. That's the hottest canyon of the course.
Okay.
So between that Michigan Bluff and Forest Hill, that's where you have to be really careful. So get really cooled off at Michigan Bluff. Make sure you're really comfortable and have plenty of fluids, because it's going to be a slow hike out because of how hot it is.
Okay.
Lots of exposure there. Then it's just, you're going to be coming down into the Cal Streets. And the Cal Streets, this is the very runnable terrain. So that's where you want to save all of your energy for, because you can make up a ton of time between Cal 1 and Cal 3.
Okay.
This is the most runnable section, which will bring us to Rucky Chucky, where the river crossing is. Okay. River crossing, of course, they're going to have the rafts this year, but you can still get in the water on either side to cool off.
Okay.
So cool off there. Then you've got a good climb. I think it's like a 1,500-foot climb up to Green Gate.
Okay.
That's a steady climb. And then again, it's pretty runnable all the way to, you got a little climb to Pointed Rocks, and then Pointed Rocks, on into the finish. And so it's it's going to be hot through here, but not as hot as the canyons. It's still, the temperatures in here are probably still going to stay in the, I would say, 80s, 90s, even at night. So,
okay. I guess the one thing I get to think, okay, so like at mile 70, 75, for someone like me, I'm sort of the back of the pack. So many of my races I finished in the last hour to two, with and very little time to spare. So I'm always going against time somewhat. These like 1,500 feet, or these like areas where I just need to be have the capacity to
fast
hike very fast.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. Exactly. Yep.
And if whatever condition I need to be in, I just need to be able to move out fast, going up a hill,
right.
and then downhill is gravity.
Every aid station is going to have your 30-hour cutoff time.
Right.
So you can look at that and kind of compare it to your time of day, and know where are you at. It's being here. This is the conservative range up front. Like I said, when you're getting through the canyons, you just want to be as mindful as you can of saving your legs and your energy to get through the canyons. And then once you're through the canyons, once you get to Forest Hill and see your crew, again, this is where you're going to make up your time. So you need the legs in order to be able to do it. So up here, it's going to be tough, right? Just manage your time the best you can, save your energy as best you can, and then like I said, once you get to Forest Hill, bring it home.
Right. Aaron, I guess another concern that always is in the back of my head, it wasn't at Old Dominion because there's so much road there, is I wouldn't say I'm not a very good technical runner, so I'm always concerned about, that trail has got just rocks and roots all over, and I won't be able to run that very fast. So I'm always little bit. I just don't know what to expect.
Right. It's from what I understand, it's nothing technical as we're used to.
Okay.
Most of them are, there may be obviously some rocks and roots, but nothing overly technical like an East Coast trail.
Right.
It's pretty, tame compared to what we're used to. So it's, it would be runnable.
Okay.
Right. During the night, I just, as you did with Old Dominion, have good lighting just to make sure. Yeah. The better your lighting, the faster you can move. So.
Yeah. That is. Can I? I'll just tell you one of the things I did try out new at Old Dominion. that rule, you don't try anything new out the first time of the race. But I just got a waist light in for
game changer, right?
Game changer, just a complete game changer. I think I went with the UltraSpire 600 light. Not that, just because I've just read so many good reviews on it. That was a complete game changer for me, for just
totally
mentally seeing what's on the trail as my eyesight is improving as I get older.
Yeah, it gives you depth perception, and
having that combination waist lamp in a really strong headlamp was wonderful. Old Dominion got foggy, and
which the headlamp does not.
Headlamp does not work, and so that's the one comment. I am going to have my waist lamp, headlamp, all the above. I will never get caught short on lighting.
Good.
So
I think the only other thing, and we kind of talked about it on our run a little bit, was swapping out footwear.
Yes, that's
you said like an old pair of your Hokas at 15. Which is a good idea because the snow, just depending on how wet your feet get, right? Like we want to try to keep the feet dry as we can and healthy as we can. Yeah. So if you got to 15 and your feet are soaking wet and you want to change socks and shoes, that's not a bad idea. So take care of your feet, because you could change there and then again at 30, right? If you wanted to switch out to, your new pair, because then it's like, basically you're going into the canyons where the creeks are. But this is going to dry out. So once we get past Robinson Flat, we're going to be out of the snow.
Okay.
So once we get past that 30-mile aid station, we'll be out of the snow, and then the only other stuff will be the creeks, but we'll be in the heat here too, which should dry us out a lot faster.
Okay.
So so if you want to switch out there, if your feet are just incredibly soaked, not a bad place to switch out. And then when you see at Forest Hill, when you see your crew, if you wanted to switch one more time.
That's a great idea, yeah. I always like having that option to having the shoes in the bag. If I choose not to do it, no big deal.
Right.
Yeah.
So take care of those feet.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what they used to always tell us in the Army.
Yeah. That's a great word of advice. Great word of advice. Absolutely. There are some sections as we get lower that's going to have a little bit of humidity, but it's going to be pretty dry compared to what you and I are used to. But yeah, we might see some humidity, especially as we come out of some of the canyons. But nothing that we're not used to, other than the temperature is probably going to be hotter.
Okay.
Anything else you can think of on the course?
No. I was so focused on just getting through Old Dominion, the confidence of getting through one race. I just haven't been able to bring myself to look into the race so much. This is very helpful for me. You're bringing up a lot of points you can't get from just looking at the map. Oh, I think I had the big thing in Red Star, and think the sun's going to be out, and I've got to be concerned about that point. I would have been, why did I just have my hat?
I would even carry just a little bit of bug spray with you.
Okay.
Because it can get pretty buggy. Tell your crew to have some bug spray with them. And then, I think everything else, like you've got the water, nutrition, sunblock, change of shoes and socks. Those are going to be the key things. I can't think of anything else. Yeah, man. It's exciting, huh?
It's super exciting. Going back to when I first contacted you, I think it was November, December timeframe.
Yep.
It's been good. I mean, I think I listened to one of your podcasts, and someone on there said, pick your team, and that was a really important aspect of this. And,
and you were mentioning your one pacer fell through.
Yeah, I'm on the fence on whether I'm going to have a pacer or not. I was telling you, part of the training for this, most of my training has been by myself, and it's not that I don't like running with other people. Yeah. It's just I've been dealing with a lot of Achilles problems. I needed to get myself a base built up, and there's so many times where if something wasn't quite right, I would stop and walk. But I might not necessarily do that with a group, and I might just push it, and then something will happen to my calf muscle, and I won't be able to run for 2 or 3 weeks. So I've gotten to where I've enjoyed running by myself. So I'm a little bit on the fence with a pacer. But every time I've had a pacer, it's been great. So I should just sign up and get a pacer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, especially the back end.
Yeah.
Because this is the area that you want to be able to kind of move a little bit quicker.
Right.
So something to consider. Not to say you have to or need to, but if you're pressing cutoffs on the halfway,
it is
just something to consider that might help you.
Yeah,
but totally individualistic. That's I enjoy the company, even if I'm quiet. I enjoy the company and having friends with me and sharing the experience as well. Which I know you use the website, right, to connect with the pacer.
Western States has a wonderful website on connecting with pacers. You basically.
Yep.
You just click on the link and you can exchange. Basically, it's like exchanging emails, and you could talk and talk on the phone.
It's like eHarmony.
In some ways.
They tell you a little bit about themselves, and you can make the match.
And I'd like to find a pacer that's paced before or knows the route. That's.
I know. Yeah, my coach has been talking about he wants to kind of pace me on the back because or through the canyons because he knows them so well. Like I need you to go slower here. I need you to jump in that creek.
Right.
So, it's super helpful having that person. So definitely a good idea to look for somebody that has the course experience. Well, cool, man. Any final thoughts? Any final words you want to say about Western States or anything?
Well, I'm at the point now, we started this, I'll just say like a December time frame before Christmas. I was at the point where, I got to run this race to qualify for Old Dominion. Maybe there's some potential getting in. I was pretty much out of shape then. And, it's I picked the team, as to say. I went to the runner's mechanic. That's one step. I after hearing you should do yoga, and you're everyone is absolutely right. I started practicing yoga 3 or 4 times a week. Picked a coach, and it's been about 6 months of training, first 6 months of training, and I have a calm feeling, which is really,
that's awesome.
There's nothing better than just going into something and not being, at least I'm not worried about there's something I should have done.
Right,
I feel like I've taken the right steps.
Yeah, I've covered the bases.
Yeah, I covered the basics, and that's part of this, staying consistent and
absolutely
covering the basics and sticking to some solid fundamental just basics.
And you've lost a ton of weight too.
I was telling you earlier, I probably lost about 25, 30 pounds, and that was just from choosing a salad over a pork sandwich and staying away from desserts.
Right.
So there's
good
really
life choices.
good choices on that. And I felt like I've done that in a responsible way. Of I don't think I've I mean, probably at the most, I mean, I've been consistent about a half a pound to a pound a week without like any type of anything else except just going out there and doing it. So I've been pretty happy about that. Really excited about Western States, but I won't let myself get too excited.
Because then it turns to nervousness.
Yeah. So,
I had a few nervous thoughts this morning and had to rein it in, but we have to control the controllables.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there's only so much.
That's for sure. Well, Thomas, thank you, man.
Yeah, thank you.
And how can folks connect with you?
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook. I think it's under Thomas Brown. Maybe I'll just give you, I don't know if there's a way to give.
Yeah, so I'll put it in the show notes.
I keep my Facebook pretty much to running and nothing else.
Are you on Strava?
I am not on Strava. I might be on Strava, but I don't really, I just didn't get into that.
That's fine.
I do work at Just Running, so I do meet a lot of people at their local independent running store. I am known as the you're the guy that leads pub run on Wednesday. So.
It's fantastic.
But probably the best way. I am happy to receive any and accept any friend request on Facebook. Cool. And I try to keep Facebook just to like what's going on with running and nothing else.
I'll put that in the show notes. Thank you, Thomas.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me on here, Eric.
Yeah, man, and best of luck next week.
Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate Thomas coming to my house and recording with me. It was a lot of fun to do that and be face to face. I've been fortunate to have some face to face conversations of late here for the podcast, which is just awesome and tremendous. So thank you, Thomas, and best of luck, of course, to Thomas at Western States, along with the rest of the Grand Slam for him. So we're gonna have Thomas back on post Western States in pre Vermont and kind of talk about things and where we're at and how things are going. So you can stay tuned for that. Me going into Western States, gear is packed. I'm going with the USWE 8-liter, the Pace 8-liter. I've got 2 of them, so my crew can have one ready for me when I see them. And I can just switch packs and continue on my merry way. So I don't waste too much time in the aid stations. With the snow, I'm going to start out with the Topo Mountain Racer 2. I will say, I just got the Mountain Racer 3. Really felt good underfoot, but I just didn't have it for long enough to really say, I'm going to trust this for Western States, which Mountain Racer 2 I used for hard rock, so very familiar with that shoe. I've trained quite a bit with it, so I'm going to start with that for the high country, get a little extra traction is my hope. I'm going to go with the Dry Max Sage Canaday sock. It's an old sock. I think it's been discontinued, but it's been kind of my tried and true for wet feet, or lack thereof when I wear that sock. So going to go with that as my liner. Hopefully keep the feet happy and dry and blister free. So that's the plan for the high country. When I meet my crew at Robinson Flat, about 50K in, 30 miles or so, I'm going to switch shoes, hopefully, to the Olympus. Kind of my distance shoe. Go to the Ultra Olympus, switch into those, and probably a change of socks. I may stay with the Dry Max, just depending on how they're feeling. May switch over to the Falk, the German brand that I've talked about in the past. They've got a kind of an anatomical footbed, so a wider footbed. Still a sock, not a toe sock, which is interesting. They've made it so that the knit is a wider knit. It doesn't scrunch at the toes, which is cool. So anyhow, that's my plan there. And then kind of getting into Cal Street and the faster parts of the course, I may switch over to the Ultra Mont Blanc and roll with those, just as I did when I finished Bigfoot. But we shall see how my foot is doing at that point. May not necessitate a change, but we'll see. So that's the plan for footwear, pack. I've got a 1.5 liter bladder and a 2 liter bladder. 1.5 liter is kind of early on. Probably switch over to the 2 liter bladder for the hotter parts of the day. I won't see my crew for the first, as I said, 30 miles, and then I won't see them again for 25 miles. But after that 25-mile section, I only have about 7.5, and that's when I can start to pick up my pacers. And that we're we're still going to see how Morgan Elliott's feeling. He's been racing a lot lately. Don't want to injure him or make him more tired. I know he really wants to do this, so I'm hoping to get either Morgan or Nathan out there for that section. And then, pick up the other, either Nathan or Morgan. We'll talk more when we get together. Unfortunately, my wife hurt a calf. As much as I wanted her to pace me in the final 10K, I don't think that's going to be a reality, which is a complete bummer. It's Mercedes is completely healthy. Morgan's fiance, so either her or Patrick Reagan is my other go-to pacer. So I've got plenty of people that want to pace, which is very fortunate, and I'm grateful for them. So yeah, it'll be great. My kids are both going to be there. Wife will be there. And the folks that I mentioned. So just really happy to have these great people around me and sharing this experience with them. I welled up today just kind of thinking about this opportunity, and I've talked about it in the past, just how grateful I am to be able to get out there and, God willing, find the finish line. I just want to make my way to Auburn and stay healthy, have a good time. I know it's going to be tough along the way, that's for sure. But I think I prepared the best I can. Did my last sauna session today, being Sunday. Ran in 85-degree heat the other day. It's about the hottest it's been here in Western North Carolina. And, actually, I felt great. Did not feel hot at all. So I'm hoping the sauna training holds up and does me right. I know it's going to be hot, and no doubt. There's no doubt about that. But I'm just hoping it doesn't have extreme adverse effect on me. Training has been great. I'm really happy with the way it went. Got in plenty of distance and endurance. I feel, the endurance is not an issue. Been doing all my treadmill hiking. So if you look on Strava and you see 1.5 miles or 2 miles randomly, that's my treadmill hiking. So yeah, just, I'm just happy with the way things are right now. So, going into race week, excited. I haven't really got nervous, but I'm sure, once I see that starting gate, that Western States puts up, things will get real. And, but I've been waiting for this for years, and just excited for this moment to come. So just getting ready to fly out. Like I said, just packed up, got all my stuff together. I've got a lot of gear, but logistics are going to be, a little challenging for this one, just because of not being able to see my crew as frequently. So I just want to make sure they're okay as well. I want to have a peace of mind out there. So, but everything's ready to go. I am ready to go. Happy hunky dory. I can't wait. It's just got to wait for it to get here. So, I'll be posting on social media and on Strava, links to follow along, and my bib number as soon as I have my bib number. Just waiting to see what the athlete tracking information is going to be. We haven't received our final email, which is surprising. I'm hoping everything's okay. Being patient and trying not to get too excited or overwhelmed. So, I appreciate you sharing this journey with me. I can't wait to talk about it either way, whichever ways it goes. Like I said, I'm just gonna keep trying to make my way to Auburn, unless something unforeseen happens, which it always can. And I'm just really praying that I can make it through, because I've done everything I can to make that happen. So. Once again, thank you guys for sharing this journey with me. And until next time, keep running, my friends.